If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
So, without further ado, let me introduce you to Gate. Gate, good morning, and how are you?
I'm still learning, as Mr. Fuller would say often, and we are always still learning. We should always still be learning. Welcome to the show. Thank you, Mr. Bobby, for the introduction, and welcome everybody again to Mr. Neely Fuller's Counter-Racist Code Show. We are here every Tuesday at 9 a.m., and we're here to keep Mr. Fuller's legacy alive. Mr. Fuller went to join the ancestors on February 1st of this year, and we are determined to make sure that we keep his name alive, that his teachings are kept up in front of everybody, and that let the world know that this fight for justice, it continues. We can't replace Mr. Fuller. That's not the aim of the show. The aim of the show is to make sure that we're still learning. We keep learning. We have an exciting show lined up today. We're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about, one, can you hide from the system of racism and white supremacy? I think the Temptations had a saying, run, 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 but you sure can't hide. So can you be out in a distant island somewhere? Can you reach at a certain point in the racial hierarchy where you feel like you have escaped the system? Well, we're going to talk about that. We're going to get some of Mr. Fuller's exact words and see what he had to say on this subject. And that's one of the recurring themes we ask when we bring these topics before you. We run them through the prism, through the lens of the code book. Mr. Fuller wrote 3 books. He wrote the original book back in 1984. He wrote a word guide back in 2010. And then in 2016, he wrote his revised, expanded edition of the original code book, all of which are available on producejustice.com. So we're going to start off the show by talking about run, but you can't hide. And also acknowledging this is the first day of July. This is the second half of the year. If you haven't gotten everything done that you set out to do this first half, you got another half to take care of it. So let's get out here and get busy and be constructive. Make sure we are fulfilling our goals and aims, and that we are pursuing justice at every turn. Let's talk about this run, but you sure can't hide. Now, Mr. Fuller had a few words to say about that. He felt that you can't escape this system. And if you can't escape it, what do you do about it? So I'm going to start out actually with Mr. Fuller's words, then I'll give you my take on this particular topic. Let's hear Mr. Fuller as he talks about this topic of this, how difficult it is to get around this system of white supremacy. Let's hear his words.
I was trying to get away from racism. I would talk to somebody, 10, 12 years old. Certainly by the time I was 16, I was really serious about it in my mind as far as asking questions. Starting with little elementary things like, I ask people, I say, where can I go where there's nobody pays any attention to what color you are? What place? And people would say, well, hey, I mean, a whole lot of black people leave the South and go to Kansas City. I say, well, is there racism in Kansas City? Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, but it's a little better than being in Alabama. There's no escape. racism is everywhere. You can't go to some island somewhere and there's racism not there. The racists control that. If there's some non-white people there, either directly or indirectly. You know, you're on an island, say. How do they control that? Well, they control that by whether or not you can leave the island and go somewhere else. Because somewhere else is controlled by them, and where you are is controlled by them. Because anytime they come there, they just come there and build an airstrip, fighting a war or something like that, and just push you out of the way, even when they're fighting among themselves. So I learned that, and I say it's nowhere to run. So then I came to the conclusion about 1956, and I said, Fuller, you know what? Forget about that running. Turn around and grab that bull by the horns. Win or lose. And so I've been on that kick ever since. That thing called racism. Yeah. There ain't nowhere to hide running around in the Coliseum with that bull, that white bull chasing you. I mean, with them sharp horns, and you got nothing but yourself and your legs trying to run. But at a certain point, you realize there's no escape. There ain't no exit here. I'm just running around in a circle. So that means one thing. At some point, you're just going to get tired of running, and you're going to get gored anyway. Because you're weak. You're tired. So before you give out of strength altogether, turn around and grab it by the horns, and let's wrestle.
Mr. Bob, you heard him. He said you can't run from it. At some point, you got to turn around and fight that. You got to fight that bull.
Yes, absolutely. That's with anything that you have to deal with in life, particularly if you are going to be codified according to what Mr. Fuller has written.
That's right. Let me give you my take on this. And we're also going to talk about today, we're going to talk about July 4th and celebration and what Mr. Fuller said about that. We have the so-called holiday coming up on this weekend. And so we're going to find out how Mr. Fuller, he's going to give us some guidance on how we should proceed, whether or not it's constructive or not. So stick around for that. But first, we're going to deal with this issue of the omnipresence of racism and white supremacy. And why is it so difficult to get away from it? Well, I've been looking at this topic over the years, and I've asked myself from time to time, why is it so pervasive? Why is it so hard to escape? And why is it so difficult to replace it with a system? Racism is so difficult to get rid of because it's not just that individual in front of you calling you a name, or somebody denying you a job, or these microaggressions that we incur on a daily basis. It's also institutional. And institutional, where you have organizations with policies in place. You have workplace rules and school rules and banking denials of applications, and you have algorithmic discrimination. So there's algorithms in place. So the institutional and individual racism are bad enough. And then we have systemic. That's the interaction between all these disparate groups. And they come together to form a system. And it becomes very, very difficult. On the last show, we talked about, Mr. Fuller actually he said, racism is hard. It's a tough system to fight. And the reason it's so tough is because it's a system. He said this often. We're dealing with the system of racism, not the daily microaggressions, not the daily person just not hiring you or giving you a job or engage. Then you have institutional things like redlining, and it formed this system. So that is why Mr. Fuller has asked us, as we're going to segue into the next topic, to tamp down some of this celebration, and let's educate ourselves. Educate ourselves. And that is why he laid down these 3 books. He wanted us to go out here and educate ourselves because this system is so pervasive. So one thing I'm going to entreat upon you as a call to action is to, for one, let us get a better understanding of what this system is and how pervasive it is, and understand it's not just that person in your face that's calling your name, that it is individual, that it is institutional, and that it is systemic. And until we approach it that way, we're going to be like Mr. Fuller said, you're going to be like you're going to be like that person that in that ring running from it. You're just going to be spinning your wheels, running around in the Coliseum, like Mr. Fuller said, until you turn around and stop running, stop being uneducated about what it is, stop understanding what you're facing, turn around and fight that bull. And like he said, let's rumble. Let's rumble. Mr. Bobby.
Well, anything that we face in life, and particularly under this system, we have to stay focused on what is happening to us. And we're in a system of racism, white supremacy. And when you are focused, then you will stay consistent in how you address these situations, knowing that most of whatever you do is not going to work except if you employ the methods of dismantling the system. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be difficult, but it can be done. And that's why we have this program, and that's why we have these books that Mr. Fuller has written that you can get by going to producejustice.com. That's to keep us on track, because a lot of times when things happen to us, we sometimes get dismayed or discouraged. But the books help us to stay focused, and even this program to conversate the different issues that we have to face.
Thank you, Mr. Bobby. I'm reading a quote from one of the listeners. He said, "Good day, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Gate. Neely full of worries you've just played hit home. I'm feeling burned out right now at this moment from consistently fighting white supremacy and hatred every second." Well, Radio Remix, you are not alone. And Mr. Fuller understood. He understood that many of us are going to feel that way. He says, matter of fact, I'm not even going to try to quote him. He actually addressed this exact issue. I'm going to put up another set of words from Mr. Fuller. When a caller called into the show, Mr. Fuller had a show. What comment, Mr. Bobby?
Not, somewhat related, but what are your thoughts, or what are your thoughts, or what do you think Mr. Fuller's thoughts would be on this so-called big, beautiful plan? How is it beneficial to us? And the people that are proposing this, how can they look you right in the camera or on media and really lie to us like that?
Well, it goes back to what we were saying initially. You can't run from it, and it's brazen, it's right in your face. And it also speaks to what I was just speaking about earlier about the pervasiveness of racism and white supremacy. You have a bill that's in front of they're debating in Congress right now that's going to pretty much damage and hurt many people in this country. It flies in the face of what Mr. Fuller calls justice. When you think about Mr. Fuller's definition of justice, this is the antithesis of that. As a matter of fact, let's get Mr. Fuller's words on what justice is, and you will see that there is it's the exact opposite. It is actually the exact opposite of what Mr. Fuller describes as justice. Let's just get his words. It's a very short quote, but it sums it up very nicely.
What is justice? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help.
Now let's think about that. Let's put that in context. So you have a bill before Congress that's going to possibly kick some people off of Medicaid. It's reducing aid across the world, basically, to marginalized people. From my understanding, is one of the main reasons they're trying to do this is that they can provide these tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires. Now, if that's not the opposite of justice, I don't know what is. Mr. Fuller just stated that guaranteeing that those that need help the most, which are the elderly, the sick, the marginalized people, get the most help. Guaranteeing that people that need help the most get the most help. This bill is the opposite of that. So you don't have to get into the details. And I encourage you to read the bill. And at the surface, when you were just reading the bill, and I've read quite a bit of it, you say some of the things, and you say, man, you know what? I agree with this. What's wrong with that? But you have to understand how white supremacy works. It's coded. Things are coded. You have to understand, go back and read about the Southern strategy. And the Southern strategy was about a system where I'm going to do this. It might hurt me some too, but it's going to hurt you more. And that is exactly what this bill does. It's the codification of the Southern strategy. So what we're going to do, let's find out what Mr. Fuller, now we talked about Radio Remix and his quote. He said, man, it hit home, and sometimes he felt like he's a little discouraged at times because it sounded like it's hitting him from every angle. And we feel this way sometimes. Many of us do.
And made a statement that since black people are subject to the white supremacists and that white people control everything, we should give up. Black people should give up on trying to do anything because white people control everything. That's what he says in his email. Everything that everybody does should produce a constructive result, or all constructive results, because all results of any move that a person makes, or millions of people make, should produce constructive results every time, without fail. And if you fail the first time, you keep trying. So I'll answer that question that way about black people should give up. Nobody gives up, or should, according to the code, compensatory logic, on doing whatever it takes to get the most constructive result. Right at this moment, nobody, no person on the planet is doing only what produces constructive results. Because in order to do that, you have to show a record of every move that you make, every breath that you take. You produce a constructive result in whatever you say to a person. And the most constructive result, in other words, better than anybody else can ever do it. How many people are qualified to do that? None. So nobody has bragging rights. And therefore that leads me into also this July the 4th thing. Nobody should be bragging about anything. And just talking about having fireworks, they've already made a big mistake right there. That's not a constructive result. That's not an example for anybody to follow. We don't need fireworks in that particular form, because in commemoration of an event or a series of events back in 1776, it is called. Fireworks, meaning you're working with fire. And when you read the history of what went on July the 4th, it all had to do with people killing people. Although the reasons might have been so-called noble, doesn't call for a celebration. Why? Because people died, that's why. By the death, people causing the death. You're the cause of death deliberately of someone else. You don't have anything to brag about.
Now, one of the things Mr. Fuller said about celebration, and also feel free to join the conversation. I'm going to put the link in the feed, and you can just click on that link, and you'll get instructions on what to do next. And Mr. Bobby, you had a comment.
Yeah, you mentioned something very important that should not be ignored, and that was, and you just mentioned it, the Southern strategy. Now, Gate, I don't know about you, but many people don't know what that Southern strategy was, and to my thought, is still going on. If you don't mind, let me just point that out so that everybody at least can hear what the Southern strategy is.
Okay.
In American politics, the Southern strategy was a Republican Party electoral strategy to increase political support among white voters in the South by appealing to racism against African Americans. As the civil rights movement and dismantling of Jim Crow laws in the 50s and in the 60s visibly deepened existing racial tensions in much of the southern United States, Republican politicians such as presidential candidates Richard Nixon and Barry Goldwater, they developed strategies that successfully contributed to the political realignment of many white conservative voters in the South who had traditionally supported the Democratic Party so consistently that the voting pattern was named the Solid South. The strategy also helped push the Republican Party much more to the right by winning all of the South, and presidential candidates could obtain the presidency with minimal support elsewhere, meaning the electoral college votes. That's why one of the reasons why they did that, so that they could influence electoral college. Forget the popular vote, but that Southern strategy, those Southern states, I think it was 13 of them banded together, and that is a powerful thing. And that's why how a lot of the Supreme Court or court appointees are appointed by the president or whoever is in power. See, the whole thing is not right, but you brought that up, and I'm glad you did. The Southern strategy, that's what they did, man.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. And I remember the Southern strategy quite vividly. As a matter of fact, one of the architects, got Lee Atwater, he, in a nutshell, bringing it down in the common language, he said things like, you can't, in the old days, you could use the N-word. Like he said, you could say nigga, nigga, nigga. He said, you can't say that nowadays. You have to say things like anti-busing and states' rights and things like that. You can't come right out. But they're speaking in a code that they understood. And so, that's why I appreciate what Mr. Fuller said. We have to get a code too, but they've had a code for years. And the Southern strategy has been replayed. It has been repackaged, repurposed, and playing again right now. Every time you turn around, people are scratching their head. Then we have to keep going back to Mr. Fuller's quote when people saying, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. What they're saying it on the surface, prima facie, it sounds like it should make sense to a rational person. But then when you get down to the nitty gritty of what's actually being said, you find yourself scratching your head. And we have to bring up Mr. Fuller's quote again.
if you do not understand white supremacy, racism, because white supremacy is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. I'm going to say that again. If you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is, what is white supremacy, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you.
Mr. Fuller was very purposeful when he wrote this book, when he made these statements. He was 95 years old when he left us to go join the ancestors. And up until his last breath, he was still saying, I'm still learning. So when you hear things about the Southern strategy, and you hear people talk about things that we should be aware of, you hear people talking about what is justice and why am I confused? Well, don't be confused. Educate yourself. Understand what you're up against. Go and read the Big, Beautiful, Big, Ugly Bill. Find out about the Southern strategy and how these things have been repurposed and being applied to the life that we're living as we are navigating this earth right now. Now, we're going to shift to our second topic. I think it was a good segue, that we have a holiday coming up. We just come off of Juneteenth about a couple of weeks ago, and now we're going into what is called Independence Day or 4th of July. And people have asked, what should I do? What is the constructive approach to do it? Well, in the actual code book, I have the book here before me. On the code book, Mr. Fuller had a quote. He said on page 114 in the expanded edition, he said, when someone asks you to participate in any activity, celebration, event, gathering, ask him or her, what would be the constructive result of my participation? Now, he also went a little further. He got really down with it on this one. He said, so as somebody asks you, do you have anything to brag about, to celebrate as a non-white person, as a person of color? And he said, absolutely not. He said, you basically have nothing to celebrate, period. Now, he was pretty strong. He didn't really give you much wiggle room. I may differ in a slight way. I think some of the small micro celebrations that we celebrate through life, when you get you've been fortunate to receive some type of award or degree. But even that, I think you have to take it tongue in cheek. There's so much to be done. There's so much to do. That energy that you're dispensing on expensive gifts and showers and celebrations and parties could be used towards the application or the administration of justice. Let's find out again what Mr. Fuller had to say about this topic, and we'll get your comments. Also, let's take a quick, this is the counter-racist code, Mr. Fuller's counter-racist code. I'm here with Mr. Bobby. I am Gate. You can find out more about the show, which is brought to you by Produce Justice, which was Mr. Fuller's organization. You can go to producejustice.com and find out more about the show, find out more about the things that are happening at Produce Justice. You can listen to past shows. And we have some things coming down the pipe. Mr. Fuller has some unpublished works that we will be announcing soon. You can find that on the website. And you can also go to our social media platforms. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, and we're also on Instagram. So we bring you this show as part of at the behest of Produce Justice and then Mr. Neely Fuller's family to keep his legacy alive. I've seen so many instances where people have had very commendable lives and they've done so much for moving justice forward. And when they left us, all the information, all the energy and momentum went with them. We're determined not to let that happen in the case of Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And that's why we're here every week at 9 o'clock on Tuesdays. Let's go into this topic. Let's tackle this topic. Mr. Fuller, what he had to say about celebrating and the 4th of July. Let's take a listen.
Absolutely. That's a part of the code. You don't celebrate anything if you're black. You're not qualified. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Don't celebrate. But under compensatory logic,
Right.
nature doesn't like a vacuum, so you got to replace that with something.
That's
so
right.
don't celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
Educate.
Mm-hmm.
We should stop using that word celebrate. That shouldn't be in our vocabulary at all. It should be educate. And when you educate, then you learn. You don't want to hear no fireworks. Black people got enough fireworks, to last them forever. Ask the people who are burying somebody right now as we speak, who was killed by another black person. How about that?
Yes, and economically.
You're going to celebrate that? No, you educate so that doesn't happen. And things just like you just mentioned. Celebrate the 4th of July. See what's and even if you're going to celebrate the 4th of July or educate about it, you don't do it with fireworks. Quiet, not loud. So you can think better. You can think better when it's quiet. A lot of black people don't think at all about nothing until they get locked up in solitary confinement. That's the first time in their entire existence they had time to think.
Yes.
Mr. Fuller summed it up. He does not appear to be a fan of celebration. What do you think?
Well, if you think about it, the system that we're under, which is very oppressive, why would you celebrate something that we really weren't included in? He's correct. There's no celebration, which is exactly why the system has to be dismantled. They say that we're free, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Now, that's not true. How could it be true when we are under surveillance 24 hours a day? We're profiled, we're mistreated, we're treated as second-class citizens, but yet and still, and you go out and buy these fireworks to these companies that support white supremacy. Come on, man. No. We don't have nothing to celebrate. We celebrate when the system is dismantled and then replaced with the system of justice.
As the Fuller referenced, Frederick Douglass and his most recent soliloquy we just put up. And one of our followers, Sassafras, said he quoted Frederick Douglass. Mr. Bob, I don't know if you have that quote over there from the exact quote from Frederick Douglass, but one of the comments he made was, what to the American slave is your 4th of July, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. Now, if that doesn't cause you to reflect, I don't know what does. When you're dealing with a system, and we talked about the three layers of the system: the individual, the institutional, and the system. Institutional, we're dealing with institutional injustice and racism. We're dealing with individual, and we're dealing with systemic. And systemic is all encompassing. So when we address, seek remedies, and to redress these grievances, we have to look at the total system. And it's hard to address and to seek remedies when you are participating in celebrating your own oppression. And I'm not putting words in Mr. Fuller's mouth, but that's what I'm taking from his quotes. What do you have to celebrate? Now, I like a good day off as much as the next person. And when I have an opportunity to relax and decompress, I'm going to go for it. But one thing Mr. Fuller said in one of the earlier quote was take a moment and be quiet. Reflect. Keep learning. That doesn't mean when you take this day off, you have to go sit there and stare at the wall. Educate yourself. Mr. Fuller was educating himself right up into his last days. So that's another call to action today. As we come upon these holidays, like I said, it's if you want to get together with family, if you want to throw a hot dog on the grill, I really don't see any problem with that. But this blatant obsession with celebration, shooting up fireworks and getting drunk and doing things that are non-constructive, Mr. Fuller is not for that. And he says it in his books. He says it in his videos. And I think as a community, we have to become more constructive in our daily activities. And I'm going to actually take that to heart when I get into this holiday that's coming up. It's coming up this Friday. This is 2025. I'm going to do what I normally do. I might go to the office, may not. But whatever I do, I'm going to be circumspect. I'm going to be reflective. I'm going to be purposeful. I'm going to be constructive. So even if you say, let's just say, okay, come on, Gate, come on, Mr. Bobby. We've been doing this. This is part of our tradition. Family gets together. We throw out on the grill. We bring out a keg. Got the music. Got boots on the ground playing. Come on, man. You can't tell us to stop that. Well, sometimes it's hard to do things that break tradition. But new traditions have to start somewhere. Everything that's a tradition now started out as just an idea. I look back on the other holidays like Christmas and Easter. We got Easter rabbits and bunnies and eating candy, rabbit ears and chocolate, and got Santa Claus coming down the chimney. Well, once upon a time, we thought that was the only way you could approach this. But I can tell you over the years, many people have shunned some of those acts of celebration. Some of those people stopped telling their kids about Santa Claus. Some people started treating these different holidays differently. And so maybe you might be that agent of change that's needed to start the new tradition. All traditions start somewhere. So what can you do? You can look at this holiday. If you're going to be off and your families get together, maybe you can educate, maybe you can inject some type of game that helps educate the young people. Maybe you can introduce some type of activity, because something has been done a certain way forever doesn't mean it has to continue to be done that way. And did I say it's easy? No, it's not. Change is difficult. But we're not moving. The ball isn't moving, ladies and gentlemen. We have a Congress, an executive branch, and a Supreme Court that's hell-bent on sending us back, way back. This is not business as usual. We have a foreign policy that doesn't always serve our best interests. We have an education system. We have an economy Go back and look at the 9 areas of activity. Mr. Fuller laid them out. If you're wondering how you're going to be impacted, he said these are the 9 areas you have to look at. If you're not sure, get the book. Go to Produce Justice. You can also go to the website. We have it all laid out on the website at producejustice.com. Mr. Bobby.
Yeah, you brought up a very good point and a relevant point again. Matter of fact, you're doing a good job on that. But this craze, boots on the ground, people would rather do that or study the moves of the boots on the ground, rather than something constructive like how dismantling the system of racism, white supremacy. I don't have nothing against the boots to the ground. You remember the mashed potatoes, the hully gully, the twist, the booty call, dance and all that. Guess what? They're only here. They're temporary. That's all they are. They're temporary. But we'd rather pay attention to that and have fun. Or you mentioned drinking liquor, or the things that they do, the other stuff. To enjoy themselves, maybe to ease the pain of the oppression. But it doesn't really fit when you're trying to dismantle the system, and then the system is designed to get you discouraged. So if you focus on that and keep your focus on what you need to do, and teaching your children and others and others, living it, not just saying it, but living it, then you stand a chance. Little by little is the system going to be dismantled, because it is firmly planted in the minds and in the system globally.
Thank you, Mr. Bobby. You're exactly right. One of Sassafras said on the 4th of July, encourage everyone to listen to what Frederick Douglass said. You might play his speech. Like when we have the like Martin Luther King Day holidays and some of the other holidays, I know in my household, we pull out the tapes. We play videos. We play audio tapes, and we listen to speeches. Now, and like I said, if because many people are off on that day, I mean, like I said, the best thing to do is, might be to just ignore the whole day together. But it's so ingrained. I'm going to keep going back to this institutional, this systemic racism. It's hard to get away from. It's in your everyday life. You can't, the wave of a wand, change what has been culture or tradition for the last 50 years. But what you can do is to help steer it in a positive and constructive direction. Now, Mr. Fuller, one of the things he used to talk about is he had this thing about don't even get together, don't even get contact, because when you come together, sometimes something terrible happens. Matter of fact, we did a show a few weeks ago. We were talking about how black men and black women interact and some of the challenges that they face when they got together. Mr. Fuller, like, don't even get together, period. If you're going to be acting like this, let's hear Mr. Fuller again.
So start going through all of these contacts and say, well, is that contact necessary? And in order to do what? And did it produce a constructive result? Those 2 words should dominate the entire existence of you on this planet, or really any other planet to turn up on. Was it constructive? Did it produce a constructive result? And evaluate it. And if it didn't produce a constructive result, try to get rid of that baggage. Say, well, that's not constructive at all. I have found out from experience. So why do I keep engaging in that type of contact? And it'll be helpful for the other person. Because nothing that anybody does is supposed to produce anything that's non-constructive. So it's not a personal thing, it's logical, according to the compensatory code. and according to logic, this basic logic, which is what any code that's worth being called a constructive code should produce constructive results. That's all I have to say about that. I'm ready for questions.
Let's talk about this again before we get out of here. Of course, people are going to get together. People are going to contact each other. You're going to jump in the car. You're going to go to the beach. You're going to go to the park. You're going to go to somebody's house. Just ask yourself, yeah, you're up against some formidable forces, tradition, marketing. How can you make this constructive? Okay. You might be that change agent that suddenly changes the direction, the trajectory of how your family, how your friends and cohorts get together. That's my call to action. And this is not just coming from me. This is coming from Mr. Fuller. He wasn't big on contact to begin with. And he said, if you were going to get together, can it be constructive? What is going to be the constructive outcome of this gathering? If you're not going to be constructive, you're better off going somewhere and just chilling and educating yourself. Read a book. Breeze Creation said people are already setting off fireworks. I tell you what, we need to go out there and find them and hand them let them come and listen to the show or send them to Produce Justice and give them one of Mr. Fuller's books. That's what I'm saying. This is not going to be easy. That's why we have to stay at it. That's why we have to always be learning. That's why we have to read the book. Mr. Bobby.
Yeah, and Breeze, he's correct. It comes down to this, and Mr. Fuller clearly pointed it out in page what is that, 171, 172, the 4 wants. See, they want to do the boots on the ground. They want to do that, or like I said, the booty call or whatever. Show you how old-fashioned I am. Twist, chubby checker and all that. See, they want to do that, so they'll practice that. But when you mention about studying, the works on how to dismantle a race system, it comes down to this. They don't want to. But in the book, what did he say? What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? How do you plan to do it? And what are the constructive results? The evidence shows that people don't want to really do this, but they'll complain about it. Go ahead.
Well, folks, we're coming toward the end of the show, and we've talked about a couple of things today. The first thing was, should you give up? Can you outrun racism and white supremacy? Mr. Fuller's take was, don't run from it. You can't outrun it. You got to turn around and face it. He said, like a bull in a coliseum, that bull is running around you. Eventually, it's going to gore you one way or the other. So why keep running from it? Turn around and fight it. I added my take by saying, when you fight it, you have to understand that it's not just one level of racism. You have individual, you have institutional, and you have systemic. And so you're dealing with a formidable force. And it's not going to be easy, but it's definitely not going to be made easier if we're spending all of our time celebrating what? The dismantling of racism. Are we celebrating the fact that we now have justice, that justice reigns all over the land? Well, like I said, yes, occasionally we may want to acknowledge some accomplishments. We've done some things. We've gotten that degree. We've helped our children. We've started a brand new business. Things are going well. Let's acknowledge it. But ask yourself, is your way of acknowledging it constructive? And therein lies what Mr. Fuller's, the point he's trying to make. He's not saying don't go out here and acknowledge what your accomplishments. He's saying, is the way that you acknowledge it constructive celebrating and setting off fireworks and getting drunk and doing boots on the ground and all the other things that might come along with it. But the Bobby found that boots on the ground funny because it is kind of funny. I went to the Juneteenth celebration over at National Harbor this past on Juneteenth. Now I will admit, see a little boots on the ground break out, and now I'm telling you my take on that too. I've always felt that sometimes you have to meet people where they are to get them to go where you want them to go. You can't come out there handing out Mr. Fuller's books to these. Most of these folks never heard of him. Some may even disagree with some of the things that he said. So what you have to do is you have to come up with a strategy. You have to be strategic, and you have to bring those that are willing to come. You're not going to get everybody. I'm just going to tell you that. Go ahead, Mr. Bobby.
He was the new strategy for boots to the ground is all day booty. Yeah, that's what I did too. All right, Gabe, back to you.
All right, we're going to wrap it up today. Now, this is a good quote. Sassafras said, the white supremacists celebrate by making the global system of white supremacy racism stronger. Yeah. He's saying counter racism today. That's a good note to end it on. Thank you there, brother. All right, folks. Now, here's one. I'm going to put this up before we go. Produce Justice says line dances are ways to show order and unity. That's what I'm saying. When I was at the Juneteenth celebration, 90% of it was positive. People they had booths for Black businesses. There was dancing. There was families together. The kids were out there. They were having a good time. Some of the fathers had the kids on their shoulders. The mothers holding the little kids by the hand. I really didn't see anything wrong with that. But I will say, just make sure that whatever you do is constructive. If it means bringing families together, if it brings unity, if we're all pointing in the right direction, doing something positive and constructive, let's do that. But if you must celebrate, that's what I'm saying. If you must celebrate, and I understand you have to meet people where they are. If you have this long tradition of celebrating and getting together, let's be constructive about it. That's my call to action. Mr. Bobby, your last word.
ProduceJustice.com is my last word. Stay focused.
All right. That's going to wrap it up today. We'll see you next week right here on the Counter Racist Code Show, which is Mr. Fuller's own show with his company, Produce Justice. You can find out more about the show by going to ProduceJustice.com. You can get the 3 books, the original book, which he wrote in 2008. He wrote his Word Guide in 2010, and his revised, expanded book in 2016. All of the books are available on ProduceJustice.com. We'll be back next week. Go out here and be safe, be productive, and whatever you do, make sure it's constructive, and we will see you. In fact, we'll see you next week.
If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time.